Okay. Good morning and a very warm welcome to all the members joining us from India and across the globe. I am delighted to welcome you all to yet another insightful edition of the Global Udan webinar series. I, CA Mansi Mishra, a practicing chartered accountant and a moderator of today's webinar, which is a 26th webinar of Global Udan series organized by the Development of International Trade Services and WTO Directorate ICAI. The convener of this directorate is CA Abhay Hajar, and the deputy convener of the directorate is CA Dr. Sanjeev Kumar Singhal. Today's session focuses on the topic that is increasingly shaping the global professional landscape, that is strategic business management in UK outsourcing. Today's As the world becomes more interconnected, the UK continues to remain a mature, high value market for professional services. And Indian chartered accountants have been at the forefront of delivering quality, efficiency, and compliance driven outsourcing solutions. Through this series, our directorate aims to empower members with the knowledge, sectoral insights, and global perspectives required to participate meaningfully in international opportunities. Well, the outsourcing has become a key business strategy for many UK companies, helping them reduce cost, access specialized global talent, and focus more on their core operations. From accounting and finance to IT, HR, and customer support, businesses are increasingly partnering with overseas service providers to improve efficiency and scalability. Outsourcing also opened doors for CA firms to scale their practice, build long term foreign client relationships, and grow their revenue without major infrastructure cost. In short, strategic business management in outsourcing helps CAs expand their professional horizon, upgrade their skills, and access a wider global market. Well, by not taking much of a time, I would like to introduce our today's speaker, that is CA Prachi Agrawal. Welcome, Prachi ma'am. She is a fifth rank holder of ICI professional with more than 6 years of experience with the big four firms like PwC, Deloitte USI, and KPMG. She is specialized in providing outsourced accounting and audit support to firms looking for efficiency and accuracy. She also helps businesses in streamlining financial processes, ensuring compliance with IFRS and UK GAAP, and deliver high quality work deadlines. With so much experience in the field, none other than Prachi can guide us better in today's session. Handing over session to you, Prachi.
Thank you for the introduction, Mansi ma'am. Hi everyone. As you all know, today's topic is outsourcing accounting and financial services in the UK region. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. So the agenda for today is the strategic objectives, understanding why why outsourcing in UK specifically, and the outsourcing models which can be used, how we pick up partners, and a case study analysis of Tesco. This is the brief agenda as to what all topics we'll be covering today. You can take a minute to go through this.
Now it is not visible clearly. Please check. Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Now it's visible.
Okay, I hope you all have gone through the agenda for the day, which is strategic analysis skills, evaluating the opportunities present in the UK market and how we use data to our benefit. Then compliance mastery, as we all know, their compliances in India and UK are different, and they are very particular about the personal data and GDPR requirements. I'll skip this because this is just the agenda in a little more depth. Okay, so first we start by understanding the strategic context. Why UK? So, as the if we see the historical data and the past trends recently, the financial services sector in UK has been uh, has been in high demand, and they're looking for people to outsource financial services to and reduce their operational costs. And after the Brexit, UK economy faces a lot of challenges with their GDP just being at 1.8%. And they also have some shortages in the technology and financial sectors, which again makes a need and demand for outsourcing opportunities and for Indian service providers to come in. The major reason for this is the annual hike or the rising labor cost in UK, which is 4.5% annually, plus the corporate tax, which adds on. India is a very reasonable option for them to outsource their work to. If we see during 2024, as basis the data that is available, there were 6 lakh unfilled technology and financial roles, which created a gap for professionals to come in and now start providing services to the UK professionals. This is the history of how the UK outsourcing and service industry has come through and what has been the changes. So in 1990s, IT sources like Infosys and TCS established UK operations, which opened the groundwork for India to have a service and outsourcing relationship in the UK market. Post which in 2000s, Tesco, BT, and HSBC also began to have their offshore delivery centers here, and started off by establishing just technology and financial centers, which slowly moved to complete global delivery center with repeating shifts or to repeating shifts to minimize the time difference and the timing overlaps. After we have started providing services in the UK market, presently there have been more than 7 lakh plus jobs created by Indians in that market, and we have covered that sector. So hopefully going forward, the technological and the labor gap we see in the UK market will be all Indians providing the services. If we see the historical data and the analysis, the market growth year on year, we can see how from 2020 to now, the service provision market has increased by good 100 millions. And the outsourcing adoption rate has also increased. Previously, they had hiccups about outsourcing services to the Indian market, as our understanding, the laws, the reporting languages are very different. They're not exactly very different, but the words and the language that they use is slightly different, and the way of reporting is more professionally done, and they are not very keen on the pick points but about how the process is flowing end to end, what is the analysis from our end, and all of those things. So I think once those things have been factored in, the outsourcing adoption rate has also increased, with IT and finance taking the lead. So majorly the service sectors where there's good demand in UK's finance again stands out, which creates an opportunity for CAs to come in and take up jobs and work there. In terms of regional preferences and cost savings achieved, again, India stands out compared to places like Philippines and Ukraine, where also outsourcing work happens. But considering the cost saving and the availability of Indians to pick up extra tasks and then ensure that the services are provided on a timely basis, India stands out in terms of regional preferences uh, have by the UK organizations. Even in terms of the company size distribution, major services are obtained by large or mid entities and lower on the SME side. So the best people to reach out to to have more outsourcing relationships would be the mid and small organizations. Large organizations also prefer tie-ups, but they are trying to set up their own global delivery centers internally. Maybe having tie-up with the Indian global delivery centers helps there. But the audience for small CA practices and mid-sized CDBA practices to collaborate with UK would be the mid-markets or SMEs. Now, in terms of the services which are being provided to the UK, major part wherein they prefer Indians coming in is the back office. Very less services are provided to the middle office or front office. They do not prefer us being on the front face of it. And slowly, hopefully, in the coming years, that will change. In terms of financial services, the requirements are very simple. They want us to have personal data regulations very clearly, that as in when any personal information is used, post which they have a period of say 1 year or 2 years after the usage, and then we discard it, we do not have it. There's no threat to data which is stored with us. We have all security measures and all compliances are met through, in which no information is being leaked through, and everything is saved in a proper way. Then the regulatory reporting timelines are met, back-end audit support is provided as and when needed in the way that they require. Upcoming growth areas include digital marketing solutions, ESG reporting, and fintech partnerships. Moving on to the fintech bit, India currently is providing 17.1% of the market, holding 17.1% of the market share in terms of providing services and developing softwares there. And which also brings us to the point of cyber security, that when we are providing software services, we also need to ensure that there's proper cyber security policies or controls in place, and the cloud migration is not too complex, and AI relevant to the softwares are being developed as well, because AI is the upcoming need of business in future. So these are few other areas where fintech partnerships can really shine. Moving ahead to the public sector and healthcare opportunities, if we see on an overall basis, 20% of the entire UK outsourcing market, where India is having its play, is the public sector, and where there are digital transformation, cost cuts, and data management and digital platforms. These are the areas wherein the services are majorly being used. Currently, opportunities are also coming up in the healthcare sector with NHS digitization, telemedicines, health apps, again, patient data management, which again requires strict GDPR compliances, wherein personal data is maintained very carefully with no security threats attached to it. Regulatory compliances as per the UK laws, which includes NICE guidelines. Okay, so when we see the outsourcing market, we can analyze it in terms of the pre-Brexit and the post-Brexit area. So, post the Brexit has come through, we have seen that new opportunities and complexities have also arisen in the cross-border operations when it comes to advisory services from Indian chartered accountants. Now we have enhanced due diligence requirements for European data processing and cross-border transfers, wherein we need to show how we have all compliances in place, what are policies with respect to data protection, how we process data, is the data completely secure, and historical record of say the financials, that there are no regulatory notices or something which have come through. There's a end-to-end due diligence wherein we need to show how we are compliant pro, and that is a green flag for them to go through. Then there are new customs and VAT obligations which affect the service arrangements which can be done with the UK, and that all of those laws need to be kept in mind when a service arrangement is being designed. Also, there are work visa restrictions presently. So there's no, there are restrictions on offshore delivery. Oh, sorry, there are restrictions on onshore delivery. So there's more reliance on working offshore, And typically, what we have noticed is in terms of trend also, as per the model outsourcing models, the offshore delivery mechanism has the best cost savings with improved results due to, say, overlapping shifts and everything. So the reliance on offshore delivery is recently increased a lot, and the benefits which the European market is observing is great. Then the advantages which have come through from the Brexit mechanism also include reduced competition from other European providers due to regulatory barriers and increased compliance costs, as they have to maintain an entire set of uh, compliances, softwares, and everything in place. And they also have some regulatory barriers which stop them from providing those services. Then UK businesses are also seeking non-European alternatives, as the cost savings which come from India are clearly very significant, while the Europeans have a specific cost bracket which does not offer the particular cost savings which has made the Indian outsourcing market so attractive. Then they also need people with more English speaking um, places, and Indians in the UK market have established that the language is not a barrier, and the cultural alignment is very similar, as we can see that the difference between India and UK law is there, but it's not, the gap is not a lot. It can be, the gap can be filled by efficient trainings in house and everything. So they don't see it as being a challenge. And government has also been working towards promoting India UK trade partnerships and including trade free trade agreements. They want us to go ahead in that market, provide our services, set a foot, and bring in more business to India on these lines. So all of these things make it a strategic plus for Indians to move forward in the UK market. However, there are some complexities with respect to agreement sourcing, the service arrangement design in terms of the UK structure, and again the compliance requirements, which are very important there. So if that can be worked through, UK market seems very good to go ahead in this area. Then, with respect to the taxes and transfer pricing, also, uh, you there is scope for Indians to come in and provide advisory. And one thing to keep in mind is all the agreements which are structured for outsourcing and everything need to be at an arm's length price, and OECD and transfer pricing rules must be kept in mind when these are done. And all documents must be in place, including all the reporting obligations, maybe cost plus method, or in advanced pricing method for transfer, determining the price must be on based on comparable transactions and functional analysis, so that it doesn't seem we do not come under the purview of all of these regulations. ICS again released detailed guidelines on these as well, which you can go through. And India also has a double taxation avoidance agreement with the UK to minimize withholding taxes and prevent double taxation. So those areas should also be explored when determining a service arrangement to ensure the best operating results for us. Now, when an agreement is structured, the most important thing to keep in mind is the service level agreement, which we also call the SLA, is very transparent in its nature in terms of what are the services we'll be performing, what are the areas we will be covering, what are the KPIs or the targets that they are looking for us to achieve, and if there is any defined metric in which they want to compare it, because at the end of it, when there's going to be a feedback or review, we need to know what our KPI was, how we have met it, if there's a hit or a miss, and if there's a miss, what are the reasons, how we can work through it to ensure our delivery is correct, what is our measurement frequency. Again, it's not necessary that the measurement frequency is always agreed at the time of agreement, but it's always beneficial to determine it then, because then we know that there's going to be a bi-weekly meeting wherein we are going and checking if our operational costs have been met, or if there's any typically these agreements are based on the time which is being incurred to provide the services. If there's any increase or decrease in the time, maybe they'll want to know why there's been an increase. So maintaining transparency in these areas is very important. If we also see or come through any of the, if you have ever come through any of the UK services and their way of operation during your professional practices or work, you'll also know that even when they are sending through their invoices or billing agreements, they have it very clearly mentioned how much time has gone through for what, how they have, kind of map the gap wherein there's a hit or a miss, what are the plans to ensure that the targets are met. So this is a very important area. In terms of KPIs, if say it's operational, in case of any operational, like say it was accounting and some area of the software, something that needs to be done, we are stuck. So and they are not, or if there's a feedback that they wanted it to be a certain way and we have not been able to achieve it, we should try to resolve it on the first call. Maybe that could be a target, that we are trying to resolve it in the first call, a second call when it's being raised to us, and we are not waiting for a follow up to come through. And we should, maybe the target could be say 80% or 90%, depending on how comfortable we are with the software. So these, all the KPIs need to be agreed at the time of SLAs to ensure there's nothing coming through at a later point which leaves us a bad feedback, right? In terms of quality of services, say the defect rate, we target it to be less than 2% or 5%, and it can be jointly reviewed on a weekly or say monthly basis, wherein MIS reporting is done for accounting services. That depends on case to case scenarios, but what is our target? What is the metric which we are measuring? And it pertains to which part of our service needs to be defined and understood so that the monitoring can happen on a regular basis, and the partnership actually transforms into a long relationship and is not a one time assignment. In terms of compliances, maybe we can keep an audit score of 95%, wherein the compliance officer is reviewing what all we have done, or say an internal auditor is going through the compliances which have been done. And we have seen that there have been no defects or all compliances are met for and there's a target of 90% compliance efficiency. In terms of innovations, this is particular to the technological areas. Have been able to optimize any processes or advise on that side if that is what we are doing there. So, what is our target? How many processes do we need to optimize? It could be maybe say like 10 on an annual basis. So, you could measure it one on a monthly basis, or determine a frequency in terms of what processes are going through and what is our target to be able to optimize them. Then another metric would be the customer satisfaction score, which is the feedback, say, on a monthly, half yearly, or annual basis for one time services. And again, it depends on the length duration of the service. But the satisfaction score really matters because it can really help us turn short term relations into long term partnerships, which is the way forward, right? If we want to expand into a different market area and make a space for ourselves. And with respect to security and the cybersecurity side, if the incident rates are less than, say, 1% or 0.1%, that could also be a good way to measure it. I will take a pause here if there are any questions which have come through.
Prachi, I think we should continue with this. Post the session, we will take all the questions one by one.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. Now moving on, there's one company, HSBC, which is like started initially with setting up services in the Indian market, and it has been a success, after which a lot of other organizations have slowly started setting up their global service centers in India. So HSBC initially started off with say 2000, 3000 staff members just to outsource financial and tech support from India. Now they have major global services in five cities: Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, and Vizag, with 24,000 plus staff for financial reporting, accounting, compliance, payments, audit, and technology support. and they have a projection that by 2030 they are going to invest say USD 110 billions into the Indian market and global capability centers to expand their operations from India. In addition, they also have back office processing in India. And HSBC also partners with Indian organizations for IT support, software development, and audit services, wherein they say outsource a specific part or a small chunk of the major services that they are looking forward to and want us to do that bit and deliver. These are more like one-time contracts, but again, depending on the relationships we have established, the customer feedback or the customer satisfaction score, this can turn into a long-term contract wherein we can constantly help them improvise, optimize, or pick up a certain chunk of a certain entity for the audit advisory or accounting services. Post HSBC, BT, and Tech Mahindra are also a part of the largest say, outsourcing deals with UK and India share. BT has 1 billion partnership of £1 billion with India, and similarly Tech Mahindra as well. The our partnership between BT and Tech Mahindra was particularly with respect to IT operations and network management, including cost efficiency and software development. And they had a hybrid delivery model. What is a hybrid delivery model? We'll cover in a bit when we move to the outsourcing models. But they did have some stringent requirements and compliance standards for the telecommunication sector, which Tech Mahindra has been able to achieve. As a result of this partnership, BT has been able to achieve 35% cost reduction in IT operations. Their software and system availability increased to a 99.9%, which is like 0.1% default rate, which is great. And many organizations cannot achieve this. They have also accelerated their digital transformation timeline by 18 months, which is a lot if you consider the cost it would have incurred, cost it would have taken the business to take that duration. And they have also been able to create 8,000 plus jobs in India and also and 15,000 plus jobs in UK through reskilling initiatives which were required to map this change which has happened in terms of digital transformation. But this is an example of how good a partnership can be and the results which can be achieved by the entity who is outsourcing these services to India. Moving on, we try to understand the SLA in contract management. SLA is the service level agreement which we will be having to design before we enter into any before we start providing any services. And the service level agreement or the contract, as we say, needs to define the KPIs or the performance metrics very clearly. And maybe we should try to ensure that we are including KPIs which are measurable, including quality scores, turnaround times, availability metrics, uh, with baseline improvements and improvement targets. The baseline part is important because we have to actually do a pilot run, or maybe it's a good advice to do a pilot run before we actually start providing the services to see if there are any gaps, if what we are doing is satisfactory, and if they want any sort of improvements with our work. So that is very important for us to establish. Again, turnaround time is a very good KPI to include in the agreement at the time, because we see there's a time zone difference we function around, right? When they say EOD, their EOD could be something different, would look something different than ours. So maybe if we establish that this is going to be a turnaround time, say we take 48 hours because of the time difference, and our availability is from XR to YR in the UK timeline, and we just discuss it beforehand. Will this work for them? And maybe if there's something really important coming through, how open are we and how flexible are we to adjust our turnaround time to that in those specific instances. And having all of these things laid out at the time of designing the SLA makes it very easy for us to provide services at a later point of time, because then the expectation we set is in line with what we are going to provide. There's not going to be any to and fro at a later point of time where something different comes through. And it is not going to be of any concern, right? Then we should also define escalation matrix with response times and authority levels, mentioning in what at what tier what issue can be raised to whom and what would be the typical response time, including resolution procedure or rapid resolution, to ensure that our services are provided smoothly on a continuous basis, and any escalation which comes through with the right authority, it can be resolved very quickly, and the resolution is again on a mutually understood basis. But it is very important to define this, because the person we are having on the front office might not always be the person who has the complete authority to take decision on all levels. Sometimes we also have delegates working on the field, right? So to determine the escalation matrix initially really helps them to know who the point of contact would be to reach out to, what would be the typical response time and everything, considering again the timing difference which happens with the right authority. Maybe these things can be fixed at way sooner than they should be. Also determining the resolution time frame in addition to the escalation matrix, say when an escalation is made we are going to resolve it within 2 days. Having it also defined really helps when things like this come up. And I have seen a lot of agreements wherein they also prefer to include a penalty or incentive structure, wherein say our target was to provide maybe draft reporting of MIS on a monthly basis by say T plus 5 days, wherever the last working day is, 5 days from that. But we fail to do it and we take 10 T plus 7 days to deliver it. So there is a penalty or say 2% additional fee, 2% cut from the fee that we would be receiving. Also having a certain reward for doing it early, like a 2% discount or something. So determining the penalty and incentive structure actually helps you keep the agreement very fair and service level fair, and it also encourages people to do better, right? When you perform it earlier, you're able to wrap it up early and everything is gone through, and then you also get a reward for it. It's like icing on the cake. Um, Again, with respect to continuous improvement and monitoring of the services which are being provided, we need to ensure that we are also establishing regular review cycles and performance analysis, wherein if there anything, it's like a healthy discussion wherein whatever we have done, have we been okay? What we did is in line with expectations or better than what was expected by us, or if we have missed a few things, maybe discuss what was missed and how we plan to improvise it in the future. And based on our information and understanding of the business, maybe we can suggest a few optimization opportunities wherein the services are delivered and the business needs are met on a regular basis. And it has to be very adaptive in nature. It cannot be very hard and fast. It needs again it can change depending on the need of the business and the need of the hour, but it cannot be very hard and fast through and through, right? One important area in all SLA agreements pertaining to any outsourcing area in any country would be the risk assessment and mitigation strategies that we are having in place, because the compliances are different and we need to ensure we have a risk assessment matrix of the risk which compliance risks which could have come through because of the outsourcing, and how we are planning to mitigate it, what are the measures we are taking to ensure that no such risk could arise during our engagement or our specific project. And really, because the laws are different, maybe we can take the initiative to help clients develop some comprehensive risk assessment frameworks that address their both immediate and long term partnership challenges. Like if we know there's going to be a law change which is going to come on later, or some taxation change which is going to come on later, maybe giving a heads up before and having a plan in place of what we are going to do when this is going to come through is very important. It is at the time, it is again dependent on the information that we have, but identifying these things early on helps a long way forward, because at a later point of time when we are actually on the field and doing certain things, if we realize that, oh, this is going to be a risk factor and this might not actually work through, or this might actually lead to a penalty or something, it becomes very difficult, right, to go through and just do it, or maybe back off at that moment. So having all of these things defined clearly at the time when the agreement is structured really takes us a long way with it. So, if we see the kind of impact with risk assessment which we should be targeting to create over time, would be initially at the get go, maybe the risk is a little on the higher side, because we have just discussed how we are going to minimize or mitigate it, and we are building those policies, those frameworks in place which are trying to reduce the risk to a very acceptable rate over a period of time. And we have a target timeline in place which is going to take, say, another 12 months, 18 months, or whatever time frame, to bring the risk down to a certain level in which both parties are comfortable and the assignment can go through successfully. So our target should be to bring it down as soon as possible, but again, it should be very practical and not far fetched in the terms that we are planning to do, because sometimes this may also require digital transformation or tech changes, which again need some trainings, understanding, building the software to suit our requirements, ensuring pilot runs on the software, and a lot of these things go through. So this is a time consuming process, but having practical and realistic timelines with this really help the way forward. And effective outsourcing also requires that we identify and mitigate all risk, be it operational, financial, regulatory, or strategic. All the risk areas, whatever we see coming through, we need to ensure that we have we discuss it with the client and understand what are the other risks that they think might happen or come through, and then determine a framework or have ways to mitigate it, so that challenges are minimal and can be resolved on a very short term basis and not take too long to come through. Okay, now here we state out the specific UK GDPR and data protection requirements. These are very important for outsourcing, as the compliance with respect to GDPR is very strict in the European and UK areas, right? We need to implement this framework meeting both UK and international transfer services requirements to build successful customer relationships and outsourcing partnerships. I'll take a pause here and 2 minutes. Maybe you all can just go through the slide and then we can continue. Okay, so when we say GDPR, we need to also understand what compliance requirements it includes. First is the data protection principles, which is that personal data must be processed lawfully, fairly, and transparently, and we obtain the data we need and not obtain anything beyond what we need. And the data that we are getting, we have also respected the individual's rights and such as access, and when we are going to erase or discard the data, and we are discarding it in a way which has no threat to the security of that information. and also maybe establishing how we are going to discard the data after use might help. And in case we are dealing with any organizational projects or engagements wherein we might have access to too much of sensitive data, maybe appointing a data protection officer is a good idea to ensure that no breaches in terms of what is agreed or what needs or the way things need to work is being monitored consistently. And in case there are any data breaches, we try to report it within say next 24 to 72 hours and as early as possible. And we also have data protection impact assessments in place, and we review them regularly to see any high risk sensitive data is not is stored in the right way and is encrypted in everything, and there are no apparent or obvious risks to it. And whenever any data is being transferred, we ensure that it is transferred in a say a safe way, maybe using some external encryption or whatever industry is following as a protocol. And there are very strict penalties in the UK area for data breaches, which is say roughly around it ranges somewhere around 4% of the annual turnover or something, but the penalties are very on the higher side. So ensuring that we are very in line with the GDPR laws there is very important. Now to ensure that we have complete clarity on how we are going to manage the data at the time of agreement, if we can have some standard clauses for how the data would be transferred and what would be the impact for high risk processing activities, and specifically how sensitive data is being handled, because when the data is transferred from there to here, we all need to establish how we are going to work through it and how it will be transferred so that there are no contradictions or any thing coming back at a later point of time. Then the breach notification protocols must also be informed in advance. Key, so like we are going to get back and report about any breaches in say a time frame of 24 to 72 hours. It is again very important for them to know that okay, if something goes wrong, how early can we let them know. Very general technical safeguards would be encryption during transit, access controls with role-based permissions and audit trails. Any person who does not need any personal or sensitive data must not have access to it. The access must be based on the role that the person is having, and there need to be complete or we need to maintain audit trails as to who has accessed and when was it accessed, so that at least if something goes wrong, we know what could have led to it, and there's a track of when a thing has happened. Because when these compliances are not met, there has to be typically there's going to be an audit to see how efficient our system was, who had the access, when was the access done, when was the last access, and what timing or within what time frame have we reported the breach. All of these things are taken very seriously there. So having all of these things in place is very important. Also, another good mechanism would be to do regular penetration and vulnerability assessment. We must have seen, right? A lot of organizations send phishing emails very frequently to all of their employees to see how prone we are to such to not check the mails very mindfully, and when we go and click on some external link and there's a chance that it could be hacked, but it's just a trial. So having these testing and vulnerability assessments and then training the employees and creating awareness about this is very important. Also, with respect to all the compliances, we should be monitoring them very regularly, as these are taken very seriously and these do impact a major part of how our customer satisfaction score would look like. Plus, the training to all employees for GDPR, whoever is working on the UK, onshore or offshore, is very important. Alongside this, maybe having an incident response team would really help, because if there's something which we can resolve at our end very immediately, that is the best case scenario. Sorry, excuse me. Now, Moving ahead, these are the ways or the models in which outsourcing can work. I'll just pause for a minute. Maybe you all can just have a look at the slide and read through it. Okay, if you've gone through this, the first way is the captive center model, wherein say we have an employee on board and we are outsourcing. Our agreement is designed in a way wherein we say we have identified Mr. A and Mr. A would be working for a specific UK firm or an organization, and the person would be on our roles and just providing services to UK from our end, and then the management of that organization is going to have complete control, is going to use the services in the way that they want. Typically these are unstructured agreements, and these may be structured as well, but generally we see that the nature of these agreements is unstructured. But these help in the long term to the specific outsourcing organization, as there are a lot of cost advantages at both ends. Again, they have some cost reduction benefits while we have some increased foreign inflow and better revenue billing opportunities. And the integration is also by the organization, whoever is using the services, they are able to integrate better and manage the talent directly, as if the person is completely and independently working for them. So it becomes very easy for them as well to ensure that all the overlapping cultural differences and everything are minimized to a good extent, while it is a win-win for us. The next model would be the hybrid delivery model, wherein this is similar to, say, offshore service provision. We being here and providing our services on a need basis or according to whatever timelines we have agreed to the UK organization. Now, hybrid delivery model has been gaining a lot of um, has been being is being preferred a lot in the recent days due to the optimal balance of cost control and risk through multi-shore delivery approach. As the costs are on the lower side for both entities, the control is with us and the risk is with us. However, we also have some mitigation strategies in place and everything. Now, in this model, it is very important to ensure that the strategic functions are allocated very clearly, and also the requirements or say attributes which contribute to it being the complexity of the data, regulatory requirements and sensitivity is thoroughly assessed through before any function is allocated. And these actually help in building long-term business continuity opportunities, and also helps both entities establish some geographic diversification. The third way would be strategic joint ventures, wherein there is a shared investment and risk equity partnership, and the which provides market access for both the UK and Indian partners in their respective markets. There's technology transfer and innovation sharing, based on the based on the plus points of each area and what they can contribute to the organization or the collaboration overall, creating a competitive edge for both parties to operate in respective markets. And whenever we are, say, planning to start providing our services or start integration with any UK based entities, we need to again have a roadmap, right? So it could look something like this. Say the during the foundation phase, which could be the first 30 days. We assess our skills, we get GDPR certification, maintaining all the compliances. We also provide UK law training in house. A metric could be to get a good ratio of certificate completion for all people who would be working on UK based assignments. And the resources we would need is a training budget again for all of these things cost, right? And also the integration which is going to happen, that is also going to cost. Again, a lot of time goes into these things, which is our pre-set up cost before we even start to provide those services. Next would be to build our network after we get the respective certification and everything. We should try to build our network and expand our portfolio into this. Maybe attending some industry events, trying to pitch certain clients, using some contacts, referrals, or identify certain offshore partners in the UK with whom we can collaborate and move ahead to provide those services. This all these activities are what is going to build our portfolio. We can probably measure it in terms of, say, how many quality connections who are going to get us something we are trying to build. The resources this would require is the traveling budget, networking fees for all those meetings and everything. And maybe we can, from the time we actually plan to enter and final implementation, it could take us 2 to 3 months to get there. And once we are in the market, we start offering our services, develop marketing materials, do pilot runs and everything. So a lot of these contracts, when they go for a start, there has to be pilot runs, or they prefer to have a pilot run, say for a week, or it could be for a particular deliverable that they are looking forward to, or anything of that sort, which is typically not built through, because that is just us showing how efficiently we can provide our services, how quickly we can resolve their queries, and what is the way we are engaging with them and everything. And once we get a go ahead, and then the actual revenue generating work starts, right? So to the process till from obtaining the certification to having those services, policies and everything in place, and actually going on to provide pilot runs takes a good amount of time. And all of these investment which we'll be making towards these things would be a pre-set up cost. And once we are able to establish a good network is when we start generating revenue from these activities. And we have also done a comparison between, say, onshore, offshore, and hybrid models to see how each model helps the entities and what is more preferable. And this will also have the understanding on what is how these things are working based on the previous data, and the trends that we have can actually help us advise clients on selecting the optimal outsourcing model to suit their business requirements and risk profiles. Every client does not have the same requirement or risk profile, so depending on client what would work for them, we need to understand this to be able to advise them what would work best, and then structure our SLA in that way. I will take a pause here so you can just go through this before we start to brief on it. Okay, so I'm hoping you've gone through this, which shows the analysis. Now, if we see this, the cost savings which are achieved in, say, offshore or hybrid model are the highest, with onshore being the lowest. because once a person is onshore, again we would also expect, even if the pay is slightly on the lower side, the cost saving cannot be a lot, as it needs to be in line with the industrial rate, whatever is working there, considering the taxation, cost of living requirements on the site in that specific region. So the cost savings are highest when we operate from the from the region wherein the cost savings are at the, work best for the entity, which typically would be your offshore or hybrid model. Nearshore is also preferred in terms of a lot of organizations, as the alignment to what services need to be provided, what the expectation is, and management and cultural integration becomes easier. However, offshore and hybrid have really been kicking off in the recent times. Again, if we see in terms of cultural alignment, onshore, of course, it's the same market, so it is bound to be excellent. Moving on to nearshore or say offshore, slowly it has improved a lot, and now we are on par, maybe not as good, but 90-95% there in terms of the cultural alignment. In terms of hybrid model, it could be a little on and off, but so far offshore model is really working out. Then time zone benefits, again in terms of offshore, this offshore or hybrid, these could be really mixed and challenging, as the time gap and the overlap is a lot. However, in terms of onshore or nearshore, it could be really fast. So maybe service, in terms of industries who require very quick turnarounds and have very essential deadlines which they need to be met on the clock in that specific time zone, and these are on a recurring basis, not one time basis. Like say we have a audit season and we know that okay, this might be a little challenging, but during these period of time we need to kind of ensure that the deliverables are going through in that time zone, and maybe we are flexible with it in period of time. That might not be true for services wherein the time gap cannot be a lot and they need us to respond quickly. So that again depends on the business requirements and availability of talent, as in terms of people who are skilled, who are willing to, who have all the necessary certifications or knowledge. Offshore model has like India has a lot of talent pool which is there, whereas in UK and Europe there are some talent shortages, so it might restrict their abilities and they would actually have to outsource to our region. In terms of regulatory compliances, again, onshore, it's the same regulation. It is bound to be seamless. With nearshore, maybe UK versus other European areas, there could be some differences. It could be a little complex. Moving on to offshore, being India, we see that a lot of these requirements are being integrated where in our requirements as well, and we might be close. It might not exactly be the same, but we are pretty close on par with it. So this seems manageable. And implement when it comes to implementation of the services and the initial setup or onboarding of the client, the onshore model works faster because people can come together, understand, and do it very quickly, whereas the offshore model could be a little on the slower side, as the policies, softwares, there needs to be necessary training which has to come through with respect to what they want, what the client's expectation is, how to use the client software, what set of data we are working with, how the data is designed and everything. All these things say take time, and the time difference does really add on to it, which makes it a little harder. On coming to the hybrid model, it might be a little easier to implement it, but again there are some challenges. And scalability of the services. Onshore services scalability would really be limited because the cost savings you achieve are not a lot. So there's only little you can do about it. For nearshore, maybe if you move out to areas which are, say, less pricey, or where service also the cost of providing or getting services is not as high, the scalability could be good. However, nothing beats our pricing, so it clearly stands out. And quality control onshore and nearshore, the general softwares and the tech which is used is more or less on the similar lines. So the quality control there is direct and good. However, when it comes to offshore or provider getting services from India, the quality control model needs to be established, ensuring what parameters we need, how we want to proceed, and what are the uh, way it would be targeted. If we see overall today, a lot of organizations from India are operating on the offshore services model. That is the reason this is picking up pace, and maybe this is a really good time to start building that network, start collaborating more if we want to set a foot there and establish some mechanism, or say partner with a European or UK based entity to enter the market. Right now, the market seems very lucrative, and before this stabilizes or saturates, taking action towards it can be really helpful. Mhm. Okay, to understand the current landscape which is there in the UK outsourcing market, so the projection for 2030 is to double up from where we are presently with the outsourcing, and the annual growth rate which is projected is also on the higher side of say 5%, wherein we see more work coming through on a regular basis, and us being able to build more long-term partnerships wherein we pitch one area, slowly start to expand the services we'll be offering, and take a larger bit or larger chunk of the work which can be outsourced and optimized. Then there are the vacant technological or skilled labor roles in the UK also contribute to it. And like I was mentioning, cost optimization is the most primary driver for accelerating outsourcing adoption across sectors, which has been like contributing to cost savings of around 20 to 40% for all businesses. And outsourcing also helps business to focus on core activities and competencies, while the back end work, which is CEO, accounting, maintaining records, compliances, etc., can be taken care of by someone else. And it also provides access to specialized skills and advanced technology and integration across borders. There might be some core competences which they have, but we might also have some competencies in terms of the technology and the software structure that we use. So it opens up the access to these areas as well. And targeting high demand sectors wherein we see shortages can really help and build our case. And typically, the pattern that has been noticed as for the current landscape is the financial services take the lead in outsourcing adoption model, which is then followed by technology in public sector, wherein we start providing financial services and slowly move on to our technology and then start integrating a bit of it, and it just follows through one by one. And the market share we have seen earlier, right? The financial services holds about 17% of outsourcing market, technology being the second with 17%. And typically, the technological services are more towards ongoing on or onshore needs, as the integration needs to be done live on site. Driven also by public sector, which also drives 20% due to the wage pressures there in the UK market. Okay, in terms of the model selection, again, which model is preferred more for what areas? The onshore model is typically preferred more because, but due to the higher cost for compliances and regulated industries and sensitive operations, the preference and the cap or the expansion capability is restricted, whereas for nearshore models, European locations like Poland are emerging as preferred option. Why? Because the compliances are easy, cultural alignment, and time zone benefits. When it comes to offshore partnerships, India is dominant destination for cost-effective delivery because there is English proficiency, expertise, and established UK relationship benefits with cost savings. So it's like a good advan it provides us a edge over the all other options that they would be having. So whenever we are making a pitch, we need to keep all these things in mind, how we can stand out to compare to the other options that they might be having as well. Okay. And where we are trying to say partner up with a UK firm and then provide services provide combined services on a collaborative basis. It is very important the partner we are selecting works for us so that so, to do that, maybe we should do a prior due diligence, check the financial stability, or that we could obtain the financials from the entity itself, technical capabilities that they have, the softwares that they have been using, what all hands-on experience on which technologies do they have, what is their industry experience, is it relevant to the industries that we want to enter? Maybe our strategic edge and their strategic edge when it comes to industries is different. So aligning the industry and technology along with the culture, along with understanding if the culture which is followed in the organization would be a fit for UK business practices and values or not. All of these things need to be aligned before we try to enter into a partnership or collaborate with any UK partner for providing our services. Then we should also thoroughly check if they are short on any compliances, if they have all the compliances in place which are required. For us, it's a risk, and we are willing to bring those policies and compliances in place. But maybe doing their compliance verification and understanding how they operate can also help us understand how they have optimized or streamlined their processes, and we can try to replicate or implement them in our areas, which could also like we will be able to understand that no liability from any of their shortfalls is going to come to us, and also we are able to streamline our compliances in line with theirs to meet all the requirements. So it's a win-win from both ends, right? And the SLA framework which is established needs to be very clear with measurable KPIs, escalation procedures, governance structures for ongoing management, etc. And there needs to be a risk mitigation matrix in place, which shows what are the comprehensive risks which could come through, how we are willing to continue our business, if there's going to be any changes around down the line in terms of how this collaboration would work, what are the mechanisms for intellectual property protection, and if any party wants to terminate the contract, what would be the exit strategy, if they have any such plan in place on how they would want to streamline it and make it smooth for both entities. Okay, this is another case study of Tesco, which had started with setting up a back office in India 20 years ago, and how they have increased it and everything. Maybe you can take a minute to go through this. Okay, if you have gone through this, you can see that Tesco had established its Indian back office operations 20 years ago, which included basic IT and finance functions. However, the initiative has evolved into comprehensive business outsourcing in the retail sector and establishing consistent operations. By this process, Tesco has achieved 30 cost reduction of 30 to 40% in IT operations. They have also been able to set up a 24 by 7 or deliveries or customer service capabilities for their UK operations. And this is a good example of how a hybrid offshore model combined with dedicated teams in India and again UK team leading the way has helped them in maximizing their cost benefits while also improving their quality control and operational flexibility. So many large organizations have done this, and maybe it's time for others to ramp up and take the lead in areas where we can onboard ourselves for, say, advisory, um, business planning, optimization strategies, etc., etc. And just to understand for a say Indian CA firm starting to provide outsourcing services to UK accounting practice, how would we start? What would it be? So our typical client would maybe a mid-sized UK accounting firm whom we are approaching that we want to engage with you or get on board to provide services or outsource some of your work and the services which they can probably outsource could be bookkeeping, VAT returns, payroll processing, year-end accounts at the outset, and slowly move into handle more areas of advisory, etc. But this could be a good starting point for a lot of areas. And again, the model which we would be following is the offshore delivery center with a dedicated team of people who would be working on it. We need to demonstrate that the team has respect idea of respective uh, policies, procedures, and everything, and the respect all the respective trainings are done, and they are thorough with what needs to be done. The tools used here and in UK are slightly different. Typically, they end up using Zero, QuickBooks, Iris, or BrightPay. While Iris and BrightPay are related to payroll, Zero and QuickBooks are more often used for all accounting services. And these are very easy to use softwares, and there are a lot of tutorials or learning sessions available on a paid and free basis as well on YouTube. We can just look into it and learn. There are courses as comprehensive as a week or 10 days to get us prepared to start operating on this software. Maybe just taking a trial version initially before unlocking the pro version also works to for us to get a hang of how work is done there. And again, we also need to understand how the client is using the software. So maybe this could be a very good starting point to create to approach and pitch the clients in the UK area. Moving on, how would we implement it step by step? First, say we identify the partners or the UK firms. Say we look into, we use the internet to browse through and find some mid-sized UK firms who might be handling the kind of portfolio that we also have capabilities or experience with, and then connect with them, understand if they have any needs or any work which can be outsourced, understand that if they have any areas wherein work can be outsourced. Once we discuss what needs to be done, then we also identify what compliance requirements we would be needing to go on board with them. Then we create a SOP and a workflow in terms of what needs to be done and how it will be done. So having a defined process flow in certain areas really helps us understand step by step what needs to be done, and if at all there's any gaps or something that we feel can be optimized when we actually performing it, that could actually be a add-on. We say provide a pilot run to two clients or depending on the portfolio that they want us to work with. Say on they want us to onboard on, say, performing, so providing services for 10 of their clients. So maybe we can provide a pilot run on two clients or for a week and then see how it works. We also track our turnaround time or the performance metric, what our success rate with that was, how accurate was the information or data we have processed, how has the communication been going through, and use their feedback to refine processes, etc. Then once they are comfortable with the way we have performed services, if there are any gaps we have discussed the way forward, we have a team to say handle a lot of clients, ensure that we have a designated team and the resources are allocated to ongoing on a, say, bi-weekly basis to ensure that we are addressing any challenges if all the requirements are being met, and just having a performance review or a discussion internally before we have these discussions with our foreign partner. And also, as we start providing services on a full-fledged basis, we should also ensure that secure file sharing and time tracking tools are implemented again to maintain transparency with what we are doing. Having a good time tracking tool is very important. Weekly review calls or monthly performance dashboards wherein we can see what all targets have been met, what KPIs have been met. The bottlenecks and challenges or the probable mitigation strategies for the when we initially start out could be one most important factor here would be the time zone difference, and we can actually mitigate it by introducing overlapping shifts, but again that depends on the capabilities and the availability we have of resources. The second bottleneck would be data security concerns, which can actually be mitigated by adopting ISO protocols, which list down what all security frameworks we need to have in place. And third would be to understand UK tax law nuances and the language, which again we can mitigate by providing UK gap training to Indian staff and having those trainings on a constant or a recurring basis to ensure the knowledge is being brushed up and in line with what it needs to be. The fourth would be communication gaps. Communication gaps again can be covered via trainings and Indian staff, and also if we still feel that there is some gap, maybe a UK-based liaison manager can be appointed to ensure that communication runs too smoothly, as the services can be provided very smoothly when the communication is on pace. Okay, and typically what we learn initially is to stand very important things to initially implement and learn would be to establish standard processes, SOPs and templates to and try to ensure to reduce the errors in processing. Then another would be technological integration, which again takes a bit of time to ensure everything is running smoothly in the way that they want on a real time basis. And cloud accounting tools can really help with this. And compliance mastery trainings to ensure that all adherences and compliances are in place. And transparent reporting is again very important to build long term trustable relationships. In terms of takeaway, I would say to use real tools and simulations and practice while we can while learning to understand how we need to operate and what can be done. Second would be to practice workflow mapping and client onboarding, how we are going to onboard, what would be our onboarding activities, maybe prepare a questionnaire of things we want to understand in terms of how they would operate, what would be what processes that they want us to take, how do we streamline it, what in what way do they want it, right? Every report or every file that is generated may have different ways of generation, or they might actually change it in a way that they would find it useful or productive. So, in what way do they want us to provide that data, which makes it very easy for them to use it without them having to spend additional time on it? These are the areas how we can build in efficiency and show them that we can do a process completely end to end give them exactly what they want without having them to spend any additional time on it analyzing. Then of course with these activities we also need to analyze what our originally agreed targets were and how we are able to meet them is, and how satisfied the client is getting a feedback on a regular basis. Also discussing ethical and legal responsibilities in terms of what needs to be done, what things need to be kept in mind, are very important in cross-border outsourcing relationships. Now, this is based on the historical data of the key KPIs and the success rates that we have had in outsourcing services. I'll give you a minute to go through this before I brief. Okay, so as we can see, based on what historical data we have seen, we see that there has been an average cost reduction of 25%, and the practices which we have adopted have given a satisfaction score or a compliance score of 92%, and the growth trend typically in terms of cost benefits has been 8% on an annual basis, which is good considering their annual increment or the inflation added hike would be 4.5 to 5%. So we offset it by another, say, 4%. The satisfaction with the quality of services which are being provided is roughly around 88%, and maybe once binding is done and the relationships are stronger than at the get-go, this score would improve over a period of time. In terms of the GDPR compliances, we have been able to meet 94% compliances, which is very good. And in terms of the review that they have done, the compliance score which is achieved is say 90 better, even considering the difference in the compliances and everything, by far based on the trends and the data available. I think the offshore service model is really going through well in terms of talent retention, say the employees or the dedicated designated team that we have, how well they are retained by the Indian counterparts, and the attrition rate here, that is slightly on the lower side to 82%, as a lot of people see that, oh, there's opportunities there, so might as well go onshore and get those opportunities. So that is where our retention rate is slightly on the lower side. And with terms to digital transformation and adopting to their softwares, there are still some bottlenecks which can be observed, as the average achievement rate is 76%, with the compliance being about 90. However, in a with certain period of time, once the hands-on experience and the understanding increases, that should also move up and reflect in, like, say, another year or two in terms of the data and trends that has been observed. And our takeaways from this as to strategic advisory opportunities would be that Indian CS are positioned in a way to bridge the Indian UK outsourcing gap and improve the relationships, provide expertise or advisory services in compliance, tax optimization, and other valuable areas. We can also pick up, say, client advisory services through outsourcing strategy developments in terms of maybe a very niche could be maintaining GDPR compliance expertise, wherein we provide those compliance solutions integrated into technology with how data is maintained on this technology and access control bifurcation, timelines for discarding it, the way to discard it in a secure way, and if any transfers to be done, and maintaining a software solution, providing software solution or expertise for that, or maybe offer due diligence services for partner selection in terms of whom to partner with and how to build that relationship from the start. Okay, this is about it, and I'm happy to take in any questions that have come through.
Thank you so much for such an insightful and knowledge fulfilling session, Prachi. I think we should move ahead with the questions of the members. First question is, as a chartered accountant looking to establish an offshore delivery team in India, what initial capability areas would strategically align best with the UK SMEs?
So initially, as a chartered accountant looking to outsource services in UK, the most important thing would be to obtain GDPR compliance, get hands-on training of the softwares being Zero, QuickBook, or if you are willing to get into the payroll area, the payroll-related softwares and working on it on a example basis using data of an entity available. Building that work and that report is very important and will give you the strategic edge to actually work with a UK partner. Again, in terms of capabilities, we would also need to train our employees, help them understand what are the regulatory framework there, what compliances would be required, how they are supposed to build an SAP or operate an SOP, what would be the review timeline, and what is their achievement target in terms of services they are going to provide. So, having a detailed understanding, building a framework for the services which need to be provided are very important in terms of what we are doing, and also having a good network or say one or two quality connections which could land us somewhere. Investing in building those connections is also important.
Okay, okay. The next question is, yeah, sorry. Yeah, the next question is, can you give more information on UK taxation?
With respect to the taxation practices in UK, generally a lot of work comes in for say VAT related taxation and advisory on how to structure contracts on the base to utilize the benefits of the tax laws.
Okay. Since you have already practically dealt with the taxation, is the UK taxations are quite similar with the Indian taxation system, or just the flat rate in UK?
The taxation system in UK is different to the Indian tax system. UK has a more complex tax rate structure with multiple bands and rates. Indian tax rates are very comparatively simpler as the bands are limited. However, UK taxes worldwide income, while India taxes only the income earned within the country and foreign sourced income, which might be taxable. Both countries have certain deductions and exemptions, but the categories and this differ. And one difference would be that India has a goods and service tax practice now, which is the GST, However,
Okay.
UK is still under the VAT system.
Okay. Okay. The next question is Indian CA have a role to play in UK?
Indian CAs do have roles to play in UK. It could be on the advisory side, it could be on the fintech side, it could be on the accounting side, taxation advisory side. There are a lot of roles depending on the capabilities and experiences that we want to offer and we have experience of. But Indian CAs do have roles to offer in UK, which could be both onshore and offshore led.
Okay. And the next question is how to get into implementation for 90-day success roadmap, how to get into the action mode. My son is a CPA and ACA, ACS working in UK as a senior manager. What is the scale on which outsourcing is expected? We are a firm of CAs in Hyderabad with over 35 years of experience.
The scale of outsourcing which is expected considering how we are strategically placed in the UK market right now is say about getting 20 to 30 clients in the first year, given what we are doing, the way we are approaching them, the capabilities we are setting up before we approach them, and the action plan we have in place. We're able to implement all of these things in a uh, smooth manner. Again, going back to this, the phase before we set up and approach the clientele there, we need to ensure we have the respective trainings, we have the resources to allocate the training, we have the resources, time, and the funds to allocate to the specific area. We are also attending a lot of events, client meetings, and building that network and quality connections. We can also try to pitch the clients there by not traveling in case we do not have the budget for it, by reaching out to them via emails and just soft launching ourselves and the services that we are offering, and showcasing our portfolio in terms of what we have done, the specific experience or the niche areas in which we can really help them. We should also try to do a little research on the client whom we are approaching to, in terms of what they are of, what market sector that they hold, what are the services which could be of use to them, and wherein we can see we can help them optimize or reduce cost by a certain level. We can also track our efforts by say in terms of how many meetings we actually able to land. If we are able to just engage with the client and give a brief view, we can try to pursue them to maybe do a pilot run for them, just to showcase what we are capable of. It might not be a hit in the first case, but again these interactions do help us understand how to frame ourselves, position ourselves, and set a foot forward.
Okay. Okay. The next question is how can a practice firm move ahead to approach for outsourcing?
For a practice firm, the first area of identification would be how are we, which under what model are we willing to provide our services? Are we willing to collaborate with a UK based organization and provide services to them or provide services with them in the external market? Second would be like, a EDC sort of thing wherein we are just uh, outsourcing our employer. We have designated employer whom we outsource for that respective client, and the employees on our roles but then working for that client. First step would be to understand under what model of operations we are planning to work on.
Okay. I think there is some network issue in your side, Prachi. Please check. Prachi, are you able to hear me? think she's trying to join again. Prachi, technical team, I would like to request to please try to connect Prachi again. We're not able to hear her.
She is joining, ma'am. Please wait. She has messaged me here.
Okay, so Prachi is trying to join us again. Till then, I would like to, put some highlight on some of the recent impactful initiatives undertaken by this directorate under which you are attending this webinar. So, the directorate has successfully launched and completed the first batch of online certificate courses on overseas outsourcing services for the UK. Recently, they have concluded the second RRC, that is Residential Refresher Course, for the past candidates of online certificate courses on overseas outsourcing services for US. It was held from 17th of November to 19th of November 2025 at the Center of Excellence, Hyderabad. The ICI Global Week 2025 was also organized by this directorate. It was a week long global engagement across seven regions, that is, Asia, Africa, US, Europe, and Middle East, Canada, and the Australia. It was successfully showcased the professional strength of Indian chartered accountants and explored new avenues for international collaborations. The Directorate has also been conducting online certificate courses on overseas outsourcing services for US, which equip members with the practical knowledge of the US accounting system, taxation, frameworks, and compliance requirements to help them to expand globally. The ITEC training programs conducted in collaboration with the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, brought together participants from multiple countries to experience India's accounting and financial ecosystem under ICI's leadership. Online foreign language courses were also organized by this directorate, like in Spanish, German, Japanese, French, and business English, as a part of ongoing efforts of the directorate to strengthen the international outreach. The directorate has launched the accounting outsourcing portal also through apo.ici.org, a dedicated platform designed to connect our members with international firms and cross border engagement opportunities. Well, these initiatives reflect the Directorate's continuous efforts toward strengthening ICI's global outreach and enabling Indian chartered accountants to make their mark on the world stage. Now, I think Prachi is back. So, can we continue with the questions, Prachi?
Yes, yes. Sorry about that. I had a power cut.
No problem, no problem. Well, members have some more questions.
Sure.
The question is, how do you foresee the growth of UK outsourcing in the next 3 to 5 years, especially for small and mid-sized Indian firms?
I think for small and mid-sized firms, the market for UK outsourcing presently and in the coming 3 to 5 years is very good considering how we are strategically placed, the services we can offer, and the benefits we can offer, with the major advantage being the proximity to UK and the alignment in terms of culture and the regulations that we have, which are not exactly the same but very close. So the progress and the growth that we see coming from the UK market is very good for mid-sized firms. The key identifier would be to start working on it as early as we can before there are too many people and the market gets saturated.
Okay. The next question is, which service lines currently have the highest demand in the UK outsourcing market? Accounting, tax, or payroll or advisory?
Presently, accounting and advisory have a good um, track of in the financial service sector. Payroll has also been coming through, but the requirements with payroll and the software alignment and integration takes some time and has a little there are little backlogs and hiccups when it comes to implementing payroll. But accounting and advisory is full fledged working through presently.
Okay. Moving ahead to next question. What are the major compliance challenges Indian firms face when serving to UK clients, and how can they mitigate these risks?
So one of the major compliance challenge which UK firms are very particular about are the personal data and sensitive data production, protection and storage requirements. In India, we see that we are not very particular about these things. The way we store, the way we transfer, the way the data is operated through in terms of who the people who are having access rights to it. There is no audit trail or audit log maintained. We do not have a specific way of discarding it in a very safe way. Neither do we follow encryption practices while sharing sensitive information from a mid-sized or SME level view. So one very important area would be that to ensure that the compliances are in place, and it is a very big threat as the penalties for GDPR breaches in the UK are very high. So the regulators are very strict and particular about this. That one area you need to get particular training done for all the employees, integrate our technology to ensure it is maintained in a safe way, and also regularly review how it is being processed from our end, and ensure the data is discarded in a safe way once the usage is over, and no data storage requirement. There is no particular data storage requirement, so it can be discussed with the client when an SLA is being designed onto how we want to move ahead with sensitive data. If we discard it after the use is done, or maybe if any regulatory intervention can happen, we store it for 1 year or whatever, that needs to be clearly set out.
Okay. So moving ahead to the next question, could we give some analytics on how much average business practicing CAs are generating from the outsourcing opportunities?
So in terms that again depends from the business level and the partner we have on the UK side. But typically, say on an hourly basis, the charges which CAs are able to get are a bit somewhere between 20 to 30 pounds on an hourly basis. Again, for expert advisory, it can go on the higher side. Generally, for accounting and advisory, it ranges from 20 to 30 pounds an hour.
Okay. For firms planning to enter the UK outsourcing market, what should be the initial strategic priorities? I think you have already covered this in
Yeah,
slide.
yeah,
Okay. Can you show that slide if possible, then only?
yeah, sure. Just give me a moment. I think my screen sharing went off because I rejoined. Just give me a second.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so this would be the general employer action planning and implementation roadmap before starting to outsource services, on how we identify a partner and I can also show you the slide for partnership after. Just I'll show this for a minute and then move on to the next one.
Okay. Okay. Is it possible for members in industry working in an organization can allocate some time and explore the outsourcing opportunity? If yes, how to implement the same considering all the available resources?
So for members in industry, the very first step to implementing this would be to actually get hands-on experience on the software. That first is to understand the kind of service you're willing to offer, and to again see which software would be relevant. Or just a simple research or Google search will help you understand which software is generally used for a particular area. Like for accounting, it is Zero. So just start working on the software and get yourself, have a thorough understanding of the software and how it works, so that anytime you're able to land your first call with a client about anything, you're able to demonstrate it, you know how to work with it, and you're comfortable working with it. That is one. Second is to do research on the line of service that you're willing to provide. Who could be your foreign counterpart with whom you would want to engage or provide services to? Try to reach out to them, say via emails. No, by not investing a lot of time, of course, just doing some research and reaching out to them via emails, showcasing our portfolio in terms of what you have done, what they are doing, and how you can align your interest with theirs. What would be the benefits that they would get, and what could be the possible bottlenecks, and how you're willing to work around them. Just doing that and giving them a brief on these things would actually get us to the first meeting. And once we are able to land a meeting, most important would be a pilot run. Typically, they prefer having a say stretch of 1 week or 2 week pilot run, wherein they can understand how efficient we are, what our turnaround time is, how we are able to meet the requirements, and everything. And that once we get a get go from them, that's about it.
Okay. 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 So, yeah. Can we move ahead to the next question?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So, how is UK outsourcing different from US? Which one is better and why?
UK outsourcing is different from US in terms of the regulatory requirements in UK and US are different. The preference in the outsourcing market, UK is more aligned with having outsourcing relationships with India, and the trend based on the historical trends, the work we have seen, which is coming from UK, is on the higher side when compared to US. Again, it might be dependent on the individual requirements or individual business requirements and the services that we are able to offer. But the proximity with UK in terms of aligning the culture, the way of working, the time gap, which is on the lower side when it comes to UK, the turnaround time becomes very high because the time gap is on the higher side. That is another bottleneck due to which they do not prefer, and the outsourcing or done to UK versus US is different. So again, depending on business needs and individual abilities, it might differ, but generally UK is more efficient from an Indian perspective, as the proximity in terms of say regulations, culture, and time gap, everything is on the plus side for us.
Okay. Okay. So, the next question is I have 10 years post qualification experience, 5 years in India, 5 years in Australia. I plan to start practice in India. Is it possible to get clients from outside India? What should I do now?
Yes, it is possible to get clients from outside India. You need to, maybe if you just want to start outsourcing because you have experience in Australia already, you can start reaching out to, say, smaller mid-sized firms in the UK market and connect with them and understand if they have any segment of work which they are willing to outsource or anything that they can help you with. Typically, the cost, say in the UK market for resources versus India, the difference is a lot. So definitely, it can be that we reach out to 20 and one of them won't get back to us, but there's a good chance that you will get something from them.
Right. Right. Okay. So, the next question is can you suggest certifications that we can complete to gain knowledge from basic to advanced levels?
So ICI itself is having a course on the UK outsourcing, which is a detailed, integrated, and very comprehensive course. So maybe just going getting through that session will help you understand and get you on board for everything that you need to outsource services.
Right. I think we have tried to taken up each and every question of the members. Uh, On behalf of all the participants, the Development of International Trade Services and WTO Directorate of I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed speaker for such an insightful and engaging session. Your guidance on strategic business management in UK outsourcing has truly broadened our understanding and given us practical clarity on how these global opportunities can benefit professionals like us. We deeply appreciate the time, effort, and the expertise you have shared with us. I also thank all the participants for their active involvement. Once again, thank you so much, Prachi, for enlightening us with your knowledge and making this session truly valuable.
Thank you, Mansi. I also extend my thanks to ICI for giving me this opportunity to come on board and take this session. And thank you, everyone, for joining in today. Have a good day.
Thank you.